Welcome back to our ocean studio for the YAHOWAH blog. This is episode 4 of The Voice. We are speaking now of the song that was revealed for Yahweh to acclaim the great achievements of his son. And in this song, as we have made our way through the first 5 or 6 statements in it, we have come face to face with a reality that, well, prior to me acknowledging it a number of years ago, no one had previously recognized. And yet it was here for us all to see. And that is that Yahweh and Dod, his beloved son, the actual Messiah, the former and returning king of Israel, lived his second of 3 lives in year 4000 Yah in 33 CE. And he arrived on the exact moment that he had predicted in the midst of Chag Matzah to fulfill Pesach Matzah and Bekurim in 33 CE. And he is the one that the complete fraud and counterfeit known as Jesus Christ was based upon. And so what we're doing is revealing the truth about Dod so that those who have been misdirected by the mythology of Christianity may give way to the most profoundly important truth ever shared with humankind. And that's why the lyrics of this song now read, "He made Yada known. He revealed and acknowledged, made us aware that we could become familiar with, disclosing the value of comprehension regarding his ways to Moshe, to the one who draws out through his interactions, his involvement with the children of Israel." This is lyrics to be sung, Psalm 103:7. And what it reveals is that Yahweh talked the talk, and Dod walked the walk. You see, what Dod achieved by fulfilling Passover, unyeasted bread, and firstborn children in 33 CE would have had no value whatsoever unless he was fulfilling the promises that Yahweh had made in 1447 BCE to Moshe and placed within the Torah. Apart from enabling the covenant, which is what Yahweh says that Dod did in the 89th Mizmor, and enabling the benefits of the covenant by fulfilling the first 3 Moed Mikre, Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim, which Dod exclaims in first person as a prophet that he did, even describing his sacrifice through crucifixion that year, such that we would know that the benefits of the covenant were brought to us by Dod's fulfillment of Passover, unyeasted bread, and firstborn children. And we understand the benefits and the purpose of those days because of how Yahweh interacted with the children of Israel with Moshe, because it was on Passover that the lives of the children of Israel were extended, particularly pursuant to the firstborn son, and that the children of Israel were freed from religious and political oppression on matzah, which is precisely what Dod accomplished, so that by Bekurim, they would emerge on the other side of the gushing waters of the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aqaba, as it was swallowed up the grime behind them for them to be reborn as the children of Israel emerging on the other side. And this is the message that God conveyed of the purpose of Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim, so that we would know that Pesach is all about extending our lives through the firstborn, and that matzah is about removing religious and political oppression from our souls so that we can be emancipated, enabling us to become the children of the covenant family. This is the message through the Exodus that Yahweh shared with his children. And then he explained the purpose and the timing of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim later throughout his Torah, particularly in the book of Kara, which means to be called out and is the verbal root of Mikra, invitations to be called out and to meet with God. This is the message that God not only shared with us, but enabled in the lives of his people. And then it was, of course, Dode and his nephesh soul that enabled these promises, which is why the 103rd Mizmor, or Psalm, begins with two statements attributed to Dode's nephesh soul. It was his soul that was put in a bashar, corporeal body, that fulfilled the promise of Pesach, Passover, being crucified by the Romans, which Dode explained in the 22nd Psalm, 1,000 years before he endured it and 700 years before crucifixion even existed. And then he explained the whole process of carrying our guilt into Sheol, never to be seen again, perfecting us from religion and politics on Matzah, so that he could be the Bukor, firstborn son of Yahweh, showing us the way to be part of Bukurim, God's firstborn children. This is the story of the Torah. This is what Dode fulfilled. It is one of the reasons that Christianity is so utterly stupid, because someone dying doesn't do anybody any good. It's a ghoulish spectacle unless it is tied directly into something that Yahweh explained would either make us immortal, which is essential if we're going to be part of his family, perfecting us so that we can enter his home, and then adopting us into his family, which is what Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim do. But again, to show the stupidity of Christianity, these things aren't even mentioned, which means it's nothing but a ghoulish death that serves no purpose whatsoever. I guess that's okay because it was performed by a myth. But even beyond that, in Christianity, the myth follows the path of Dionysus and Osiris and all of the other pagan gods towards a bodily resurrection, which is utterly ridiculous because the whole purpose is to go from being trapped in these physical bodies, and Dode's physical body that served as the Passover lamb was destroyed that night in keeping with the Torah. It was incinerated, just as the Torah instructs. It was to free us from the confines of these physical bodies so that we could be emancipated in time and in space and enter the seventh dimension of Shamaim. This is the purpose of all of it, so that we can benefit from it. And of course, Christianity goes the wrong way. After not dying for no reason, comes back to life as a body. Utterly counterproductive, absurd, ridiculous. But the truth is profound. It's the greatest story ever told about the greatest life ever lived. Now, Moshe, whose character was as exemplary as any that we have known and whose intellect was sublime, among the most perfect men who have ever lived, although he had his foibles as well. He was mostly a joy for Yahweh to work with when liberating his people from human, religious, and political oppression. However, this states that Yahweh interactions were actually with the children of Israel, and that's important because they were just the opposite. And that means that God would rather achieve his purpose with dunderheads than work alone. And as such, there is a job for everyone. How do you think I got this one? Well, without what Yahweh achieved and communicated through Moshe and through Dod's lyrics, his lives, and his sacrifices, well, they would be meaningless. It has to serve a function that fits within God's agenda for it to happen. The death of the Passover lamb is nothing but a good meal on a normal Passover without the benefit ascribed to it. And the fulfillment of it by the corporeal body of David in his second of three lives would have served no purpose whatsoever unless it fulfilled promises associated with Passover. And the same thing is true that Passover, and this is one of the other foibles of Christianity, Passover is counterproductive. Yes, counterproductive without matzah. And of course, there's no mention of matzah in either Judaism or in Christianity. In Christianity, on matzah, the Shabat that year, the pretend man god took a nap and nothing was done. And yet, with Dode, that was the time that he did as he was promised, and on his soul, just as this Mizmor acclaims, he accepted our guilt, religious and political, and carried it into Sheol, never to be seen again, making us appear perfect. Oh, the fact that neither rabbis in Judaism nor priests in Christianity celebrate what occurred on matzah, they're actually counterproductive, because if you observe Passover perfectly and ignored matzah, then your life becomes, your soul becomes eternal, but eternally separated from God because it retains its guilt. So that's why the story that Yahweh conveyed, not only through the Exodus, not only through the narrative of the covenant, not only through his explanations of these Moed Mikre in the book of Korah to be called out, and throughout these prophetic psalms attributable to or written by Dode, it all has to fit together. It all has to be synergistic for Dode's sacrifice to be fulfilling the Torah's promises that Yahweh has made to make us immortal, to perfect us, to adopt us into his family, to enrich us and empower us, which are the benefits of the covenant. So when Dode's nephesh is seen enabling the Bereth, specifically as Dode claims or Yahweh claims on behalf of Dode in the 89th Mizmor, fulfilling the Mikra as portrayed by Moshe, nothing is more important or beneficial to us. That's why I call this the single greatest discovery in human history, because there is nothing more valuable than being granted eternal life while perfected and adopted into Yahweh's covenant family and inheriting all that God has to offer, which is the entire universe, along with this planet, along with entry into his home in Shamaim in the seventh dimension. There's just nothing better than that. That is the ultimate 2 thumbs up, or in Wookiee's case, 2 paws up, or Wookiee could actually do 4 paws up. And all of that is accessible for us the moment we come to know how Father and Son, Yahweh and Dode, collaborated to fulfill the promises of the Bereth covenant through the mechanism of the Moed Mikra, the invitations to be called out and meet regarding the restoring witness of the eternal testimony of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakudim. This realization is what opens heaven's door. And it is a collaborative effort between Father and Son, Yahweh and Dode. and therefore to have ascertained that reality and to therefore realize that because the Messiah and the Son of God is Dowd, the returning king is Dowd, that Dowd is the one who was crucified at this time on Passover. That means there was no Jesus. That means the entire religion of Christianity is based completely on a counterfeit and identity theft. And it is absolutely rotten and despicable and appalling from the outset. There is nothing in it that is redeemable in any way. It is complete and utter demonic rubbish. That's what this means. And that the actual truth is that the Torah does say that Yahweh is God and that our salvation was provided by Dowd's, the king of Yisrael, the Messiah, the Son of God's fulfillment of these three Moed Mikre in 33 CE, exactly as he had explained prophetically. Now, the standard by which Dowd was Sadak, considered right and vindicated and vindicating, and the path which he followed are both found in the Torah, which is what makes his sacrifice relevant, and the fact that God enables it. God enabled Dowd's precious nephesh, his consciousness, his soul, to be put back into a corporeal body for a second time, and will do it again a third time. But in this second time, it is God who facilitated that, not Dowd by himself. And then it was Dowd who had volunteered to fulfill Passover, whose soul in this corporeal body served as the Passover lamb, with the body being destroyed that night after having been crucified. And then it was Dowd's nephesh soul that Yahweh enabled to be laden with our political and religious guilt. And then he not only facilitated that part of the process, but then enabled Dowd to carry it into Sheol, the place of separation, which is akin to a black hole, and had his spirit, his ruach, protect and shield Dowd's nephesh soul while it was there, enabling him to leave our guilt, our political and religious corruption in Sheol, never to be seen again, and then releasing him from it so that he could celebrate right on cue Bikurim, firstborn children, in year 4000 Yah, which was 33 CE, returning to the Father as the Bakor firstborn, having enabled Bikurim, firstborn children. It is a marvelous story. It is beautifully conceived. It is courageously and compassionately executed. And it's the real story played out as it actually transpired and was foretold in excruciating detail. That Christianity plastered all over with whitewash and rubbish, angering God, disappointing our returning king, and leaving billions of souls without any access to Yahweh, heaven, or salvation, while controlling people worldwide and abusing Jews in the process. It's the greatest crime that's ever been committed. And our job is to restore the truth, to push away the lies. There was no Jesus. He never existed. He is nothing but a crude counterfeit of Dowd David, slathered with a heavy dose of Dionysus, so that the Messiah and Son of God, which is who Dowd is and always will be, was given the absurd veneer of being God is a man. God is not a man. And so every bit of Christianity is an outright lie. And once you know what Yahweh and Dowd did together, you understand these Mizmor, you're in a position to know that it's a lie. And if you're amongst the chosen people, if you are a Yehud, beloved of Yah, a name that actually is a combination of Yahweh's name and Dod's name. Yahud, Yahweh and Dod, meaning the beloved of Yah. If you are Yisrael, which at its highest point means individuals who engage and endure with God, and at its lowest means those who wrestle with and strive against the Almighty, then this is the best news that you have ever been given. Your Messiah is known. He's Dod. He's trustworthy. He defended Israel 66 times and never lost a battle. He is the king who united you. He's the king that brought you into Jerusalem. He's the king that acquired the Temple Mount. He's the king that was the great prophet and left us 100 songs and the prose of the Mashal and the Mizmor. He's the one who slayed the dragon. He the giant. He is and particularly a Philistine. If he did them in once, he will do them in again. Those masquerading as Fakistinians. Dod is Yahweh's chosen one. He is his shepherd. He is God's chosen king for his people. He is going to return as the king of not just Israel, but of the world. For Israel, there is no better news, but you have to embrace it to benefit from it. And to do that, the first thing you must do is reject Judaism, because Judaism not only doesn't acknowledge the obvious, and all of what I'm sharing with you is in the Torah, the Nabiim, the prophets, and the Mizmor, these songs. And they rejected it all, even though you can validate everything I'm sharing with you by going to YadaYah.com. Opening this book happens to be Coming Home, Volume 1. Read it yourself. I've written it in an amplified fashion where all of the words are presented for you to validate and verify that they say exactly as I'm communicating them to you. And then they draw these conclusions so that you might know the truth and capitalize upon it. So the first thing you have to do is to jettison yourself. Walk away from rabbinical Judaism. The rabbis not only have never figured this out, and it is essential to your salvation, but they actually lied. The father of rabbinic Judaism, Akiba, fought the false Messiah of Jesus, was known as Ayusu at that time. There was no Jesus until the 17th century, the third edition of the King James. But he not only opposed the growing cult who had placed their faith in a counterfeit and a product of identity theft and Ayusu, Christu, he opposed that by coming up with a false Messiah of his own, Bar Kokhba. You have a legacy of that, the star that Israel flies on the flag and that puts on their kippas and wears as if it was their symbol, the one that you were oppressed under. That's the star of Bar Kokhba. And so the very foundation of rabbinic Judaism is the same lie that underlines the foundation of Christianity, just the name of a different false Messiah. So you have to jettison Judaism, and you have to stop trusting your politicians. They are not trustworthy. I mean, I've posted here in the last 2 days the reasons that the current prime minister of Israel needs to resign. It's past time. I don't care what your politics are. You have to stop trusting in your political party, and you need to stop trusting in those who are religious, and embrace Yahweh by name. Come to accept your Messiah as David, and recognize what he did for you. So if you're looking for God's way, you need to throw away the religious books and read what Yahweh inspired Moshe to teach the children of Israel and what he inspired his prophets to write. Now, Dod understood the interactions because He was Torah observant. His 109th Mizmor, 119th Mizmor, it's an ode to the Torah. He took the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet in alphabetical order, and he revealed a song that devotes 8 sentences to each of the 22 letters in alphabetical order to tell us how to properly observe the Torah. And you can be assured, he was not speaking of the Talmud. He was not speaking of an oral Torah. He was speaking of Yahweh's Torah as it was revealed through Moshe. And so it is by studying, observing, closely examining, carefully considering the Torah teaching and guidance of Yahweh through Moshe that Dode came to realize that it was his responsibility to serve as the Passover lamb. It was his opportunity to gain his people's respect forevermore by serving them in this way. And he volunteered to do so. And he knew that it was right for him to do so because he had read and heard about Yahweh calling him his beloved son, and that he would resume on the throne in another life on behalf of all Israel, a throne that Yahweh had built for him and would maintain just for him. And then he read in Bereshith how Abraham and Yishak went up to the Temple Mount, before it was a Temple Mount, on Moriah, the heart of Jerusalem, the city of Dode, and fulfilled the promise of the dress rehearsal for Passover, where the lamb was provided by God. And the lamb was set into the context of Abraham's one and only beloved son, speaking, therefore, of Yahweh's relationship with Dode. That's where he figured it out. His motivations for doing it I've shared previously, but it boils down to the realization that his own family rejected him. His people rejected him. After all he had done for them, they rioted and rebelled against him. And when Dode realized what the Israelites had done to him with all that he had done for them, and then he read about how even Moshe could not lead them effectively, that they turned on and repudiated Moshe at every opportunity. And they even rejected Yahweh, telling him to shut up and go away. And so Dode realized that the Israelites are impossible, and that the only chance he had of serving as their eternal king was to do something for them that they would respect forevermore. And being the one who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, well, he is that guy, because none of us would be there in eternity in God's family, entering heaven, without the fulfillment by Dode of Passover unyeasted bread and firstborn children. So we know that this is what Dode came to realize, and that he liberated, by collaborating with Yahweh, the children of Yisrael. And he is the one who actually brings them into the promised land, which is why Moshe was stopped at the River Jordan. It's Dode who brings us home. God's focus has been and will continue to be on his people and the most Yehud of all of his chosen one. Amongst the chosen people, Dode David, and that is never going to change. It is through the Torah and on behalf of his people that Yahweh, which is God's name properly articulated based upon Chaya and Torah, which provide us with the instructions on how to pronounce it. But Yahweh is compassionate. Yahweh is Rakam. He has strong feelings and an enduring commitment to favoritism on behalf of his people. And he is merciful, Chanun. He is inclined to bestow this most beneficial treatment and provide even unearned benefits. He is long-suffering and loyal and even slow to anger. And he is abounding in love, overwhelmingly kind and steadfastly loyal. And he would have to be, this was Mizmor lyric to be sung, Psalm 103:8. He would have to be all of these things if he is going to be the one who is benefiting. Excuse me one second. My dog has this horrible habit of biting herself. And so, not this one, but the bigger one, the Labrador named Asher. And I can only take it for a certain amount of time before it starts to bother me that my beloved dog is so neurotic. She's eating herself up. She has yeast infections, which I guess is appropriate because yeast is the very thing that Yahweh says is so corruptive and so antagonizing to our souls. And unfortunately, no matter what medication we provide to her, the systemic yeast infection continues to drive poor Asher crazy. So I do try to break her attention when she's going out herself, as she was just momentarily. But this is Psalm 103:8. And this is the God we know. And to be honest, he'd have to be this way to put up with the children of Israel, who were irascible, who were rebellious, who were embittered, who rejected God at every possible occasion. For most of the past 4,000 years, the children of Israel have been in an extended timeout for bad behavior. And for the most part, very few of them are better today. Yahweh wants to love them, if only they would get out of their own way and allow it. And that is why this statement, including Rakum, Chanun, and Chesed, along with the unique modification of Af, is so profoundly important. No matter how bad you have been, Israel, and you've been horrible, no matter how rude you have been to God, and you have been exceedingly unappreciative and ungrateful, and have spit in God's face, particularly with your Talmud and your rabbinic Judaism. You've so antagonized God, and for so very long, and so thoroughly, with the rabbinic religion becoming almost synonymous with what it is to be a Jew. That for many, being Jewish is not about an ethnicity, it's about Judaism. And this must change. If Jews do not come to recognize that Judaism is their worst enemy, that the rabbis have lied to them, they have plastered over the truth, they have erased Yahweh's name from their lives, they have rejected all that Dod, the Son of God and our Messiah, has done by fulfilling Pesach Matzon Bakurim, there is no one who has perpetrated greater harm on Israelis than the rabbis. And that's saying a lot, considering the adverse effects of Christianity and of Islam. But through it all, Dod loves his people, and Yahweh is magnanimous. No matter how fast and furiously we strive to contribute, even the best of us, he always gives us far more than we can possibly offer him. It is his nature to celebrate what we do together, such that he moves heaven and earth for those he loves and for those who love him in return. God is so enormously grateful when one of his creation embraces him by name, studies his words, acknowledges the contributions of his son, comes to appreciate what God is offering and expects in return. That he imbues such an individual with his seven spirits just to be more effective. He writes hundreds upon hundreds of prophecies regarding this individual and his role. And it's not only to emphasize how important this is at this time for his people, but it is also to share credit. Just as this Mizmor was written on behalf of Dod and what Yahweh would accomplish with Dod's Nefesh soul, it is God's intent to share as much credit as is absolutely possible. That is his entire modus operandi. And it's one of the things I learned in business long ago, that if you're willing to share credit, there's no limit to what you can achieve. It is something that we're witnessing the opposite now in politics, particularly in the White House of the United States. Sharing credit enables great things to be accomplished. And in the case of Yahowah, not only is he committed to the idea of working through us as opposed to apart from us, he wants to give credit to those who listen to him, who respond. Now, for an enduring and a enduring relationship to work. So for endearing and enduring sound very similar, but they're actually very different things. We need to endear ourselves to God by respecting his name, by acknowledging the accomplishments of his son, by appreciating what he has done for us. And enduring means that it needs to be steadfast. That is the nature of the Sarah and Yisrael. It's one of the things that we've learned many, many times over recently, that just because you have made a contribution to the covenant family and you've served God's choder, his Nakri, and various ways over time, if you're not enduring, the relationship doesn't work. God offers loyalty. He expects loyalty in return. He is steadfast. He wants us to be steadfast. This is not a come and go sort of a relationship. You can go, but once you've done that, you've slammed the door on your soul returning. So for an endearing and enduring relationship to work, for it to be Israel, we must come to a place where we enjoy our partner's positive attributes, while to some extent overlooking or at least de-emphasizing their less than desirable proclivities. That's what makes a marriage work. It is exactly what Yahweh does for those who are in the covenant family. Everything that we have that would annoy God was taken from us and deposited in Sheol by Dod, leaving only the best of us to be part of this relationship. And we know how Yahweh interacted with Dod, that he could be a handful at times, but Yahweh always managed to see the best in his son. And he ended up contributing mightily, ultimately saving his people from themselves. And in this way, the imperfections of life and the perfection of the Torah's process, particularly during Matzah, became manifest. He talked the talk and then walked the walk. Dod is the living embodiment of Mizmor 103. The purpose of the Torah is that it introduces us to the Bereth and then explains how we can become part of it by attending the Mikra. Those who follow this path find Yahweh to be exactly as Dod has described him throughout his Mizmor. He is lovable. He is approachable. He is exceedingly beneficial. Excuse me. If you don't stop, we're going to have a serious problem. Excuse me again, but she just went back at it. It's to the point where she has just raw spots all over her paws and lower legs. And as I say, we're trying every form of behavior modification and medication, and we're having a real trouble with it. And it's sad, but what we're witnessing is what yeast does. It's pervasive, it's irritating, and yeast, the chametz, is what fills the bread, which has to be removed, and that's the purpose of matzah. It is bread without this invasive fungus of yeast that is so destructive to our lives, so irritating to our souls, incompatible with living a full and happy life. And it is this yeast, this fungus of religion and politics, that Dowd, God's beloved son, accepted and carried into Sheol to deposit it there. So we need a Sheol remedy for the yeast infection of our beloved Asher, a name which means beneficial relationship. But I find that, and no matter what we do in our lives, when we focus on trying to properly convey Yahweh's message as it's revealed through its Torah and prophets, and as lived by his beloved son Dowd, that our lives come in many ways to have the various ingredients that cause us to understand. Because Yahweh endured a fractured family, which that is central to the message that he conveys, not only throughout the Exodus, but throughout the prophets as well. That to speak for Yahweh, we also need to suffer fractured families so that we can empathize with what God's trying to overcome. And that's what he is doing in this particular case. And now watching our beloved Asher, she's going back at her paws yet again. And recognizing that just how horrible yeast is, that it has this terrible smell. It is just, and it manifests in skin lesions. It is very much like leprosy. It is a horrible thing to have to endure. And in Asher's case, and again, this is so symbolic, it's a lesson for us. Her yeast infection isn't in a particular spot, but it's systemic. And so when she licks one place on a wound, it spreads it to another, and it itches and is maddening. And when you consider what it represents, the chametz represents political and religious guilt, separating us from Yahweh, and that Dowd's soul accepted all of ours. Imagine how irritating that would have been as he carried it into Sheol to do something that, I would so much like to see Asher enjoy, which is to be completely free of it. Matzah. That is its purpose. Well, those who see God as different than steadfast, reliable because he's unchanging, loyal, compassionate, and merciful, simply don't know him. And yes, there are many instances where God is frustrated, enraged, disappointed, angry, because he loves his children and he constantly sees his children engaged in destructive behavior. Here, Asher is back wounding herself again. It's destructive behavior. Just as I want so badly to help Asher stop doing this destructive behavior, biting herself over the yeast infections. Yahweh wants to see his children stop irritating themselves and doing themselves such harm by their yeast infection, which is religion and politics. It is natural for us to want to help those we care about resolve counterproductive, destructive, harmful behavior. And the behaviors associated with religion and politics, particularly as manifest among Israelites, have been and continue to be destructive. So Yahweh wants to resolve these issues, and he has to, just as you could probably see it in my face, he has to show frustration when they continue so that the children know that what they're doing is wrong and that it's not in their best interest, and then still love them through it so they know that should they stop being self-destructive, that Yahweh is in a place to resolve their infirmity forevermore. So in this regard, time is now of the essence. Even the best of us can try God's patience, and there is very little time left for corrections. 8.5 years from now, it will be all over, or just be how you look at our relationship with God. Now, knowing that he had lost his people's respect for having made a series of poor decisions, and Dode did. Dode sought to redeem his reputation by serving to fulfill Chag Matzah. And it is a poignant example. God used a man who volunteered for this mission because he had made poor choices. He sent the Israelites to Bethlehem, which was in enemy territory briefly, to get a cup of water from a spring there because he liked its taste better. He sent his most trustworthy defender of his people out to battle, thinking that it was a good chance he might be killed so that he could take his wife. When given three choices about how to respond to issues within Israel and with Dode, two of which would have left everyone in pretty decent position, one of which would have been a non-issue for everyone. And I was trying to teach Dode a lesson. Unfortunately, Dode made the worst possible choice, and his people suffered as a result. I've shared this example previously, but when Dode responded inappropriately to his youngest son raping his daughter, and then again inappropriately when his son Absalom killed his eldest son for having done so without Dode holding him accountable. And then he watched his son Absalom lead a coup against him. And rather than stand put and put down that coup because he had God at his side, he fled. And then when Absalom died, and everything was restored to the way it should have been, Dode wept. Dode knows that he made horrible decisions. And as such, he lost the respect of many people. But what he has done in fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim is so exemplary, so courageous, so compassionate, so utterly beneficial that he has earned the love and respect of every covenant member forevermore. We're here because of him. We live because of him. We are free, emancipated, empowered, and enriched because of him. We are loyal to him. And he earned that by serving to fulfill Chag Matzah. Yes, and it is Chag Matzah. Pesach is just the first day of Chag Matzah. It's not a 7-day celebration of Passover where matzah is simply an ingredient. The rabbis have messed that up. Now, in what I had written years ago, I took the time to explain some of Dod's bad situations, and one of them was, as I have mentioned, sending Uriah. It means Yah, the light of Yah, a covenant member, to his death in battle, so that he could claim Bathsheba as his own. It was an act so egregious from God's perspective that he and his beloved son experienced a timeout, a period when Yahweh stopped inspiring him directly and spoke to him through another man. In that case, it was Nathan, likely the one who communicated this Mizmor, the prophet. And that's the life experience of the man that is unquestionably the most beloved of God, and the very best among us. And I love the fact that God can use flawed individuals to accomplish his will, because that's all there are. The very fact that my king stumbled and then got up and made this tremendous decision is a sign that God's not expecting perfection of me. As we carry through and do what is required to awaken his people, what he is expecting is that we be appreciative of who he is. We care deeply about the truth as he revealed it, and that we're steadfast, that we continue to battle, so that we ultimately prevail. Now, this now reads, he will not continually quarrel with someone. Lo la netzah rib. He will not subject his preeminence to unending arguments, always contending in hostile opposition, continuing to endure the taunts and the insults, nor will he eternally serve as a frustrated caretaker. Mizmor lyrics to be sung, Psalm 103:9. Now, this is a powerful message. God says, yes, I am long-suffering. Yes, I love my people. Yes, at my very core, I am merciful and compassionate. But don't try me forever. Don't push this beyond the point of no return. And the point of no return is October 2nd, sunset, 6:22 p.m. in Jerusalem on Yom Kippurim in year 6000 Yah, which is 2033. And between now and then, there are many signs along the way that we must observe and benefit from. A Shabuah harvest, a Towrah harvest. In between them, the time of Israel's troubles. The sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, the orchestration of those festivities by Elia. Before that, the arrival, of course, of the two witnesses. And then Yahweh's return with his beloved son, Dod. And then ultimately doing away with all of those who have come to harm his people, while at the same time restoring the earth to the conditions experienced in Eden. There's a lot that will transpire. And for many, Yahweh's love and his mercy, his loyalty, his devotion, his favoritism will be enjoyed. But for far more, they will miss, because God is not going to be the caretaker of humankind forevermore. So even though it's going to get far worse before it gets much better, the time of quarreling is over. Yahweh has no interest in it, nor motivation to subject his preeminence to an unrelenting stream of conscious arguments, nor subject his magnificent character to insults. And I'm going to take this, and I have all of my time with Yahweh, as instructive. Yahweh doesn't do what is contrary to what he wants us to do. So, as I've said, to be part of the covenant, we have to endure. We have to be steadfast and see the process through, as Yahweh is. But we also are not the caretakers of, nor the debaters of what ails his people. It is not my job to go out and to try to resolve Islam or Christianity on behalf of Muslims or Christians, or to even confront rabbis in their den of iniquity to try to save them from themselves. That isn't my job. It isn't God's job. Our job is to speak to those who are not deceived by religion, who are not overtly political, who are willing to listen and to be devoted to calling them home. That's what I read in these words. Yahweh saying that he is committed to doing, and therefore we must be committed to doing. So depending on whether or not you wish to be removed from or endure the time of Jacob's troubles, you have until Shabuah, the 22nd of May in 2026, at the very latest, to make this harvest. Or the next best hope for you will be the Towrah ingathering on September 23rd in 2033, 10 days before God's return. And if you are unable to resolve your conflicts with God in time to be part of that harvest, then the best opportunity for you will be to accept the gift of the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, the red heifer, on the Temple Mount on the 24th of September, to the backdrop of a full solar eclipse, when Elia orchestrates this magnificent event and Yahweh releases the cleansing waters and ignites the searing flames to resolve the guilt of the adulterous woman of Israel. So when Yahweh returns with Dod on Yom Kippurim, the evening of the 2nd of October of 2033, year 6000 Yah, neither will serve as a natar, frustrated caretaker, over the irritants clinging to the status quo. Well, eternity is a celebration of family without irritants. It is a return to Eden where there was no religion and no politics. So earlier in the rhetorical questions Dode posed, they were presented in the second person feminine because they were addressing what his soul would accomplish. But now he is returned to first person plural and is making statements which would include all covenant members. This will be the last statement we'll read today and share with you as part of episode 4 of Coming Home, as we have reached the 1 hour mark, and we try to keep our programs to just over an hour in duration, because that's asking a lot of someone's time, and this is important for people to consider and to respond favorably to. So it's not according to Loka. It's not based upon nor consistent with the ways we are misled and that we mislead to incur guilt, chata, that he acts and engages with us, nor according to our errant thinking, erroneous statements, or invalid opinions. Loka awon, not our twisting the truth with our inaccurate beliefs based upon our perversions through religion and politics, that he deals with us. Mizmor, lyrics to be sung, Psalm 103:10. This is such a magnificent treasure. And at this point, we're not even quite halfway through it. and we have found more to celebrate than probably anything we had shy of the 89th Mizmor. So here the explanation is, the instruction is, that if we're going to resolve our relationship with Yahweh and be part of his covenant family, if we're going to benefit from everything Yahweh has to offer, we're going to live forever, be perfected, enter his home as part of his family, be enriched and empowered by him, based collaboratively on the work that Dod and Yahweh achieved through fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, and then engaging in the Shabuah harvest or the Towrah harvest, or even the benefits afforded by the red heifer, then we need to know that it's not by man's way. It is not according to lo ka, the chata. Chata is the guilt that is incurred by misleading others religiously. And it's not by the one God's not going to respond either, and engage with us on the basis of our Ewon, which is religious perversions, invalid opinions, erroneous statements, errant thinking, religious texts like the Talmud, the New Testament, the Zohar, or the Quran, that would church canon. God's not going to engage with humankind based upon any of those things. And that he deals with us on his own terms. And those terms are conveyed in the Torah, YAHOWAH Mizmor. And that is the message we wish to convey. So I thank you so much for listening to this, the 4th episode of AVoice, heralding the lyrics of Psalm 103, as we have just completed the 10th verse, and look forward to being back with you in our Ocean studio later today or tomorrow. Thank you all for listening.